much for joining us today. My name is Candy Tillman. For those of you that I haven't met, by the way, if I haven't met you, I hope that we have a chance to say hello, because today we do have a smaller group. This is a group of employers that I want to personally say thank you to every single one of you for leaning in on something that we all know that's very important, which is how to create and open and fill pathways for strong military talent. Our efforts are fully made possible by a group of industry partners that are all working together and really trying to support the overall community. We appreciate them very much. Many of them you will hear from today. I want to just make sure that we're all clear on this. The Department of Defense and the service departments do not endorse any company sponsor their products or services, including 50 Strong and today's event. This is a casual industry-led share session. All SkillBridge partners and interested employers are more than welcome. Again, what I want to say is this is for overall information sharing. We will not have time to do individual company consulting or problem solving, but again, the goal is we know that employers have so many questions about the topic that we're going to talk about today, and this is our collective effort to come together and share as much as we can in this hour. This is being recorded, so please keep that in mind. Anything that you share will be available for playback. Breakout rooms are not recorded, so we will open breakout rooms at the end for a few minutes. Those are not recorded. Please speak as freely as you are comfortable. I want to say for any of you that may be here as active duty service members looking for SkillBridge opportunities, today's meeting is not for that purpose. Today's meeting is really meant for SkillBridge partners and employers that are interested in joining or participating in the SkillBridge program. If you are here on active duty and you're seeking SkillBridge opportunities, I've listed a couple things there for you to check out. Certainly check out the DoD SkillBridge website. We have 5,000 SkillBridge opportunities on the 50 Strong website, including at these employers that are here today. And please certainly join us at any of our upcoming networking events. You're always welcome. If you do choose to stay here in the meeting with us and you are on active duty, I'm never going to kick anybody out of 50 Strong. We'll never say never, but in general, we will not kick people out. And especially if hearing the employer perspective is helpful in your navigation, you are more than welcome to stay. I just wanted you to understand that this will look different than other 50 Strong events. Okay, for today, we're going to talk about DoD SkillBridge. I am so honored that some of the folks that I know that are voyaging every day are here with us to share with you about what they've learned, what they've uncovered as best practices, how we're all working together. And I use the word voyage because that's a really important word. We are all voyaging on what is still a relatively new program. So each of the folks here, you'll have a chance to hear from in just a bit. I also wanted to share with you, this event is part of 50 Strong IndustryConnect, which is a series of virtual events that is specifically designed to enable and support best practice information sharing on a variety of military talent topics. Join us back next week. We'll be talking about student veterans. And 2 weeks after that, we'll be talking about Guard and Reserve employment. Okay, so for today's agenda, we are going to talk just a little bit about the SkillBridge program. We are then going to talk about how leading companies are leveraging for their workforce development. So the folks that are here because they are eager to pull back the curtains a little bit and share with you what they've learned. We'll then have breakout rooms open. So each of the speakers will host their own breakout room, and you will have a chance after what you've heard to pick which ones of those you may have specific questions for, and then we'll come back together for a wrap up. Before we talk a little bit about SkillBridge, I'm going to shut down my screen share. I wanted to make sure to let my speaker friends quickly introduce themselves so that you know who is here with us today. Please feel free to use the chat if you'd like to connect with folks while you're here. We certainly encourage that. I would like to say hello to Chris Thorne. Chris and I have been working together for quite some time. And Chris, thank you so much. Do you mind to just do a quick hello so that everybody knows who you are? And then we'll talk a little bit in a second.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone, whether I've met you or not. Chris Thorne, 30-year U.S. Navy veteran who now is an industry HR consultant, working with a lot of the great folks you see on the screen and others on helping them with their veteran talent management programs. And so I have a special bent on HR law and compliance. And so a lot of what we're going to talk today about that I'm going to share is going to be toward that, how we do veteran talent program management in the SkillBridge space and stay out of trouble, because as employers, that matters.
Yes, it does matter. Thank you so much, Chris. Mike Piper from Lowe's.
That was a quick trigger. Hey, everybody, I'm Mike Piper. I'm with Lowe's. I run our military recruiting and engagement team here, and really excited to share some of our numbers and also what we've got going on, because we've got a lot of different things going on in the SkillBridge space alone, and happy to share.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. From John Deere, David Ottavianelli. How are you, David?
Kenny, fantastic. Hey, everyone, I'm David from John Deere. I help lead our military recruiting and outreach programs. I call Chris often, and I call other partners often to help learn on all this. We're very unique in a couple of ways. We have our own memorandum of understanding so we can do individual SkillBridge. We also are a third-party provider for our dealerships scattered throughout the country. And we also participate in third-party SkillBridge opportunities with Hire Our Heroes, et cetera, with that. And a fourth, we're actually helping the state of Iowa start to become a third party for other businesses. So we're gaining some experience here and placing candidates at multiple roles. And we got a team that's fantastic and continuing to have great successes in all this.
David, thank you so much. You mentioned third party and collaboration with state organizations. We're going to talk about that. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Awesome work.
Thank you, Kenny.
From Cushman and Wakefield, Matt Disher and Jamie McCall are both here to speak. Matt, would you like to say a quick hello? And then we'll definitely have Jamie talk in just a second too.
Jamie's the guru on all things SkillBridge. Hey, everybody, Matt Disher. I lead military and veterans programs here at Cushman & Wakefield. Quick piece. Our program focuses around people, brand, and business. So not only do we run a world-class military and veterans and military spouse hiring program and DoD SkillBridge programs, but we also frequently interact with business deals and business relationships and things like that, other things that impact the bottom lines of the whole company. As a lot of our clients are themselves military organizations, government organizations, and some of you are clients of ours, and we're working along the same parallel path of doing this type of work at a world-class level. So I'm happy to be here, happy to share what we know. I'll pass it over to Jamie real quick.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. As Matt said, I lead our SkillBridge program, been in my role for about 2 years now. Feel free to drop in our breakout room. Happy to chat with you about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and packing your patience with the military and all the challenges and nuances and successes that we've held so far. So thanks so much. Hope to see you.
Thank you, Jamie. Mike McCoy from Verizon.
Hey, everybody. My name is Michael McCoy. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and lead all of the Verizon military recruitment programs. And so we participate in a variety of different ones that include SkillBridge. We still do Hire Our Heroes. We do lots of different parts and pieces to come up with the full picture of supporting our business across the board. And kind of like what Matt said over at Cushman & Wakefield, to a certain extent, I have to overcome the objection of, well, you're just a cell phone company. And so finding ways to re-articulate what we do as a business through SkillBridge, through different ways and pathways, is one of the big things that we've had to learn and iterate on to make sure that we're successful. So glad to connect and have any conversations that you guys want to have about SkillBridge hiring veterans.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Mike Powers from Tech Systems.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mike.
All right, great. Hey, happy Derby week, everybody. Hope everyone's getting some Derby bets in today, tomorrow. I'm with Tech Systems. We're an IT staffing company that's privately held. We're the largest in the United States. And I run our military and disabilities programs, which include SkillBridge and so forth. And we do SkillBridge for sales, recruiting, finance, but we also do SkillBridge for IT positions, kind of help other companies on ramp and start their own program as well. So I look forward to talking to you in the breakout room.
Thank you, Mike. Irving, are you here with us? Do you want to say a quick hello to everybody?
I am. Thank you very much, Candy. I appreciate it. And I'm Irving Smith, and I'm with ADP. I've only been with the company now for about 3 months. But it feels like I've been here all my life. I am the Veterans Initiatives Director for ADP globally. And I am an Army of One right now, but I plan to grow that piece of the business because it's so important to us. Look, my familiarity with SkillBridge comes from working at Johnson & Johnson as a general manager prior to getting at ADP, where I actually had the opportunity to bring some SkillBridge folks in. We actually have an MOU also with the DoD around SkillBridge, and we have had some successes in the past. And we are also, we have an RPO business. Basically, we provide services to other companies on how to recruit. And so for us, it's really important recruiting veterans because it's a reputational issue. We really have to be good at it. So I'm really looking forward to the breakouts so I can gain some knowledge. I'm not sure that I'm going to be a huge contributor to the knowledge base, but I certainly plan on sucking a lot of knowledge out of this group.
Awesome, Irving. We're happy for you to be here. Hey, y'all, I'm going to go through just a little bit of the overall how-to on SkillBridge and some numbers. There's one other person that I want to say, make sure they have a chance to say hello, who's been an amazing champion for the SkillBridge program from the Department of Labor, Ivan Denton. How are you, Ivan?
Hello, team. It's good to see all of you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, Ivan.
Well, I'm the government insider. And anytime Candy invites me, I'm glad to speak. And I can tell you that when I got out of the military in 2017, we were 0 SkillBridge participants. It got started in a very slow fashion, but we're now up to almost 23,000. And that was a record because Candy, I think we were at 14 and some change last year.
I have that graph to show folks too. Ivan.
Well, and I only bring that up in that this is not your father's or your grandfather's tap space. Let's just say that things are being transformed, and they're being transformed at an accelerated rate. And quite frankly, it's primarily because of employers. And I want to thank all of you employers because, you know, you create the demand, and then the services supply what I like to describe as probably the most talented workforce that the United States has ever seen and will ever see again. I'm sticking to that, Candy, until they put me in a pine box. And primarily, I'm able to say that because 35 years in the military at very high levels allow me to see the annual investments that go to our service members. And the average employer spends about $1,000 per year on development. The services probably spend about $50,000 per year on enlisted, and probably 75 to 100 on officers. It's off the charts. So Candy, I'm never surprised when employers say, how do I hire more? Thanks.
Thank you, Ivan. All right. I'm going to talk super fast for about 5 minutes. The slides that I'm going to show you are all available on our website. But I wanted to just give an overview because so many of you said that you are just getting started and looking for initial information. I do want to point out free SHRM and HRCI PDCs are being offered today through Chris Thorne Consulting. Chris's email is there. If you want those PDCs, please reach out to him. We'll drop this again. Chris, if you don't mind to drop this in the chat, that'd be great. Okay, quick overview of SkillBridge. Y'all, we know what the program is, right? It's a pretty amazing opportunity for employers to have early access to strong military talent in a way that is directly aligned to your workforce needs. So the bottom line, 2 to 6 months for you to train, assess, and onboard strong military talent while the DoD pays the salary. equals financial impact for any employer to be mindful of. I wanted to give a little bit of feedback. Of those of you that registered to join us today, 53% said that you're interested in SkillBridge but unsure where to begin. 35% said that you have an approved program and you're looking for best practices to scale. I know some of you are waiting on feedback from the DoD on your application. No, I do not have a contact at the DoD that I can call to fast track. You know, there is no fast track as far as I know. But I will say, some of the things that you may hear today can help to inform what is a really strong DoD SkillBridge application. So I wanted to just share a little bit about what the feedback was that we got. I also wanted to share with you, I've been tracking the number of DoD authorized SkillBridge partners for 4 years now. These are not DoD numbers, so don't go scream at them. These are 50 strong numbers that I've personally been tracking. And what I wanted to share with you is, again, the number of DoD SkillBridge authorized industry partners. Y'all, we reached a tipping point last year, and the tipping point was that industry partners finally understood how they could participate and they got after it. We're talking about a 26x growth in 4 years. This is phenomenal. It also means anytime you have a 26x growth in anything in that period of time, there's gonna be a ton of what I'll call maturation of the process and learning. So as Mike Piper said not long ago, we'll talk about this, we're learning every day, every single day, right? And it's a new program for all of us. Ivan mentioned this. The number of SkillBridge participants was up 57% in FY 2022. Again, phenomenal growth. Service members have lots of questions, employers have lots of questions, and it is important that we are all mindful of how we can answer those questions together. There are 2 main ways for any employer to participate in SkillBridge at a national level across all service branches. The first way is for an industry partner to apply to the DoD to get an official MOU to stand up their own program. In this situation, it is that employer's program. Okay, so they own everything from outreach, sourcing, command approvals, participation, labor compliance, all of that. The second way, any employer can work through any DoD authorized third-party SkillBridge partner that is already approved with the DoD. This is often a much easier on-ramp. We're going to talk about this, but often this is a way, particularly for small employers, to get going, or even for large employers that want to learn the program while they wait for their DoD application. Examples. All of the speakers here today are with organizations that have their own authorization from the DoD. I'm also sharing with you examples of third-party partners. By the way, there's a ton of them, right? So I'm giving you a handful, ones that we work with often. Tech Systems is a third-party partner. Mike Powers is here today. Hiring Our Heroes, I work with them often. John Deere, David mentioned this, that they support both their internal program and an entire dealer network. It is really important that employers are working with the third-party partner that makes sense for their business needs and timing. For those that are initiating DoD authorization, this is all done on the DoD SkillBridge website. Last I hear, the process from the time an application is submitted till approval, 2 to 6 months, and that really is largely driven by the quality of the application. The SkillBridge office does host webinars on their application process. We won't talk about that here because they do that. What we're really focused on here is what are all the other questions beyond the application. The second way for any employer to participate is through a third-party partner. Again, this is a really good path for those that are small or medium, maybe don't have dedicated military talent teams. Maybe they don't have the internal knowledge of SkillBridge and they're trying to learn. This also is a much faster process because third-party partners can open up opportunities at any time for any employer. Again, each employer should do their research on the company that is best for them. I want to say this before we open our discussion. There are 4 key stakeholders to SkillBridge. industry partners are responsible for activating every single opportunity that gets opened up. Let me say that again, industry partners activate the SkillBridge program, but we are one stakeholder and one stakeholder only. Respect for all of our stakeholder partners is very important. When we as industry partners demonstrate that we are focused on best practices and employment outcomes, I believe that we build trust with all of our other industry partners. So what we won't do today is bash commands for not doing approvals. They have their reasons and we are not going to worry about that. We're going to focus on what we can do. We're also going to recognize that the DoD and the services are doing their best. And again, let's all focus on how we can support best practices. I also just want to mention SkillBridge participants are DoD employees. Labor laws apply. SkillBridge is part of a strategic military talent program. Chris Thorne, as I turn my slides off, I can see your eyebrows moving. It is really important that we are all mindful as the employer community of compliance and labor laws as we are thinking about SkillBridge. This is not a free-for-all. This is something I know that Mike Powers and Mike Piper and Chris Thorne and everybody have been talking a lot about. But I think for today, I want to open up the discussion. Matt Disher posted something on LinkedIn yesterday. And what he shared was that they are constantly learning and evolving their SkillBridge program. So Matt and Mike Piper, I know this is a key point for you as well. I want to open up the discussion. Can we just start a little bit with kind of where y'all started and how you've been iterating and continuously improving?
Go, Mike.
I was good. Okay. So for us, we're a small team. So we're a team of 3. That's all. It's when you think big Lowe's, you'd think massive team, and it's not the case. What we do is we focus a lot on the workforce development piece and making sure that we are very accurate with what we do. So in general, we have several different programs, mostly stores, supply chain. So assistant store manager and department supervisor in our stores, operations supervisor in our supply chain locations. And then we are rolling out a new program for core merch analyst at our corporate office. And then we'll have other roles coming out throughout the year for the corporate side of the house. And that's to say that we've been growing and evolving and learning and continuing to add things. That new program is one of those that we've added. We started with just assistant store manager in the stores. Then we added the department supervisors. Then we added operations supervisors. And we only started in maybe like North Carolina and South Carolina. And then we said, wait, hold on. How do we do this in a very fluid and flexible capacity for our service members that are getting out? And we said, okay, how do we do this in every single one of our stores across the United States? How do we start a new cohort every first Monday of the month? So it's very much systematic, but we've grown it and gone through the process to kind of make it a little bit larger. And it's working, right? So in 2021, we became a partner of, an industry partner in 2021, 2022. We did 126 fellows through our program. That is not through HOH. That is solely through me signing the paperwork with all of the branches. That is us doing the legwork of everything. And I will share that 2023, it's only May, and we've already had 50 people come through our program. And our conversion and our offer rate is still very high. It's still at 95%, which is fantastic. And we're able to really make sure that we're doing this at a very strategic level and make sure that we spend a lot of time on the workforce development piece, making sure that there's a role there for the conversion. All of those roles that I've mentioned are all a little bit more of a higher volume role for us. There are more opportunities because it is a larger portion of our population. And that's just kind of how you keep going and moving and you just keep growing from 1 all the way to now, hopefully in the 150 range this year. So Matt, I didn't mean to steal all your thunder, but
no, I mean, look, I think what you'll hear for those who have not been on one of these calls before, you'll hear like a lot of what we say is going to be very similar, but in some facets of our respective businesses, we are completely different. And so, the polar opposite of Lowe's here is Cushman & Wakefield. And when I say the polar opposite, we are not retail. We're not a consumer brand. You can't come to a store of Cushman & Wakefield and buy anything. We are a B2B non-consumer business. We manage properties, we do construction projects, we do engineering on buildings and properties, from the places where you live, work, and shop to the stadium down the street where you're watching your favorite NFL team. Like, those are the properties that we manage on which we work. And because it's real estate, one of the challenges when I was brought into Cushman & Wakefield in 2019, they tasked me with build a military and veterans program that's going to work, because we recognize this is the best talent in the world, but we don't know how to get it. One of the challenges became a lot of our jobs required people to have commercial real estate experience. And I know that a lot of people will say, well, our jobs require X amount of experience as well. Ours are in some cases very particular to commercial real estate, property management, real estate licensing, et cetera, aside from a lot of our engineering and maintenance roles. And so we started building military outreach. We are effectively a marketing machine as well. And that's why we partner up with Candy. Candy also does a really good job of this type of stuff too, but we had to become a marketing machine. We also had to have our hands on, and this is going back to Candy's mention of my post. I mentioned Jamie McCall, who runs SkillBridge. Jamie takes it personally. We all take it personally. We have our hands on everything all the time. We don't really automate much of anything. And the reason for that is it's a very personal business, and we have to adapt with changes. And as Jamie mentioned, dealing with the respective commands and dealing with the government and dealing with all these other aspects. There's so many different things that can be thrown at you that we are constantly adapting and changing. So as we were out here marketing to the military and veteran population, we realized also that we were losing a lot of people because we didn't have opportunities for people to directly hang up the uniform and come into the business. It was just a really hard transformation to make. So we got engaged in SkillBridge. We were using third-party services before that. The problem with those is they're great if your company allows it. The problem was that we are at the behest of our clients. Our clients are some of the biggest well-known brands in the world. If our clients are growing and expanding or need more property services, et cetera, then we have to go out and find the right personnel to have on those properties and doing those services. And I might not necessarily have an opening right at this moment, but I'll have an opening in 2 weeks. And so that's how we've evolved our SkillBridge program, is to be more like, give us your information as you are a year out, 2 years out, 3 weeks out, whatever, from SkillBridge. We'll put it into our hopper. Jamie then personally reaches out to every single one of these people as they approach that timeframe window. And then what we're able to do is look around in the business as the business is ebbing and flowing, and more jobs are posted and less jobs are posted, and wherever those things are globally. She's able to say, okay, I've got a great candidate who fits A, B, and C, and they need to be in city X, Y, and Z. And then Jamie will personally make that outreach into that hiring team, formulate the interviews, and then we take the candidate through that process. Because it's an ever challenging, ever changing process, because the economy is always changing, the labor market's always changing, the admins from the military are always changing, the way that the military branches are allowing this work to be done, it's always changing. We don't automate any of it. It has to be done, knee deep in the process. So what we decided was, any or all of our positions, given that you have maybe a little bit of experience in the military doing something similar, can become a SkillBridge opportunity. We've opened the door to virtually everybody that allows you to come in and get a few months of commercial real estate experience that will close the gap on the real estate gap that a lot of people had coming out of the military, not having this type of exposure. So,
Hey, Matt, so you touched on something that's really important, and Jordan also asked this. Can we talk about alignment of SkillBridge opportunities to anticipated workforce needs? And I know this is hard work, and y'all are doing the hard work. Michael McCoy, is this, I see you put a note in there. Do you want to talk to this?
Yeah, I can. So we do a lot of this, like strategic workforce planning and, save space here. We're not always very good at it, based on the fluctuation in demands of our business and kind of how the industry and market goes. And so we look at it in kind of a couple of different buckets. And so one of the things that Hiring Our Heroes provides, and we're a big partner, so I just want to be transparent on that, but is the consistent cohorts gives us that long range planning. I am already distributing 2024 dates to our leaders for 2024 hiring goals. And so if they say, hey, so we just won a big contract with the FAA. And so we know that we have an implementation or rollout coming out that is in alignment with the FAA. We're going to need a certain number of people and skills and experiences and things like that. And so we can build in planning considerations through hiring our heroes to say, hey, we're going to know that we're going to get 1,200 resumes these 3 times a year. So we look at it that way. Now for SkillBridge, we use that as a kind of backwards facing model. And so that is an on-demand immediate need solution. And so when the business says, hey, Bob is leaving the business, we want to replace Bob. I'm a veteran, so I would love to hire somebody who's in the military or a transitioning service member. They will come to our team and we'll work in conjunction with the traditional recruitment team to either dual post, so a traditional rec and a SkillBridge rec, or we'll add the SkillBridge language to a posting so that we encourage them to consider SkillBridge candidates in conjunction with the traditional candidates that they're interviewing. And so that kind of goes to that next question that Kevin asked. Like, we sometimes are competing our SkillBridge candidates against SkillBridge candidates and sometimes against traditional candidates. But we have a different articulation about skills and experience when we're selling a military candidate in terms of, hey, think about potential. You have a 3-month, 6-month window, depending on the branch and the approval process, to get them up to speed to where they need to be a contributing member faster. And all of that ramp up and Verizonization takes place in that free 3-month period where somebody else, you're going to have to pay them at that amount for that first 3 months to Verizonize themselves. So they're going to be a much higher contributing individual faster. And then they also have a higher retention rate because we're invested in them because you had to get them up to speed. So that's kind of how we use that strategic workforce planning piece of like, hey, long range planning, we do it through the cohorts, and then short term immediate need, we do it through SkillBridge.
Anybody else want to share how they're thinking about workforce needs coming?
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that too, because what we do is obviously we've picked high volume roles because we know that that is the majority of a lot of our population. But at the same time, our recruiters are in those workforce development conversations with those recruiting teams. So my recruiter always is on the team that hires just assistant store managers and department supervisors. They're in those calls. They're figuring out like what's going on, where the needs at from not just a larger perspective, but let's say, oh, Ohio needs 15 in the next 6 months. Okay, we're gonna go and see who we can find for the military that'd be interested in going into, Dayton, Ohio, or wherever it may be. So we're getting a little bit more strategic on saying like, hey, we know the workforce need is here, and those recruiters are getting that from the business in those meetings. And then we sit with the higher leadership as well when we're looking at overarching workforce development. We have some tools and stuff that they've built out that kind of project some of that. And then the other thing that I'll add to Michael's point there is one of the benefits and one of the reasons why we get seeked out now, and we'll get calls from district managers or regional managers and say, hey, I want this many SkillBridges. I just had Texas call and say they want 5 in this one area, and we were able to fill all 5. Is because our veteran population at Lowe's is really unique compared to other places, and they stay 53% longer than any other non-veteran population. So that opportunity of that longevity, less turnover, less cost, because you're not having to fill those roles. There's a cost every time you hire somebody from a training perspective, a finding fee, all of that kind of leads to where it's a little bit where we can say, hey, look, this is why we hire veterans. And in the end, it is, and I know before the call, I think we were talking about this whole notion of it's a feel good to hire veterans, and in reality it's not. It is a business case, and I have business metrics that I literally can point to and say I can save you $2.5 million in payroll this year through SkillBridge. I can save you this because of turnover rates. I can do all sorts of different things to say, hey, look, business, this is not just a feel good. This is absolutely a great talent pool that stays longer and will promote and be hypos for you in the future.
Okay. I mean, Mike, listen, that I have business measures things. I'm freaking loving it. There's 2 topics I want us to talk about before we open the breakout rooms. I see some questions coming in, so let's get as much as we can done. 2 things I want to talk about before we open up. Third-party partners. So David O and Mike Powers. I definitely just want to do a quick overview of kind of how you are both thinking about third-party facilitation The second piece I want to talk about before we open the breakout rooms, Chris, I want to quickly talk about just a couple of key compliance topics that you have been tracking lately. So Mike and David, can we talk a little bit about how each of your organizations are thinking about your teams as third-party partners to other employers?
Go ahead, Mr. Powers. You go first.
Sure. Thanks, David. Yeah, so we're an IT staffing company. So, we were already doing SkillBridge internally. And by happenstance, clients started asking us if we could do SkillBridge for them because we were already doing general IT staffing. We already kind of had a marriage. It was not a first date. So for us, what we stepped into was just kind of doing it one at a time. Okay, we'll do it with you, see what we can do. And we've learned some lessons along the way. I'll share it in here real quickly, but we tiptoed into it with third party, doing it for companies, one here, one there, and working with them on it. The way we're projecting out is we're looking at this for companies as a way for them to have a litmus for their own program. Okay, we're going to do it through third party, see how it goes. There's system integration, there's people integration, who's going to mentor and manage them, how does it look on the back end. So a lot of the clients are using us to kind of put their feet in the water, and then they learn some things and they start to have more runway to build up their own internal program. So that's been very successful for a lot of our clients. And then what we've been doing is working with current and new companies to say, okay, what are you trying to affect? A particular skill set or a particular location? And then we marry that up with what's realistic out there in the military. And then the other piece that we've leaned in heavily on that I know but on this call know is we think of strictly employment for SkillBridge. We've got companies without naming that are saying we are short with diversity, veterans, all this stuff in IT. So we've got a rising talent program where we are bringing, high potential veterans, high potential graduates of, high school into these training programs for 14 weeks. So we've had a lot of success using SkillBridge as an onboard too into, okay, they'll spend 14 weeks learning Java software, cybersecurity during SkillBridge. And at the end, they go into the third party company to do that work. So the company's kind of following them through each week of the schoolwork, talking to them, and then they finish the school, get their certification, they go in to learn, that particular bank or insurance's world. So they don't, if they're a tank mechanic and they go into IT, they're not starting cold, they're starting warm. And that also drives a very good program. So they look at it different ways. They don't have to find an exact match. They can train them or they can hire them. And then lastly, what I'll say is, our clients think they're ready because they want to do this. There's a lot of things they don't know, from who's going to mentor them, who's going to take care of them. Have we discussed salary? Does the mid-level managers know about this program? How long does it take for this to get approved for each person? So they learn a lot through it. And what we are looking at doing now is moving out of just IT, but helping companies with whatever the skill set is they need, and help them with that. So for us, it's also great to obviously help the company do it, but it helps soldiers and them learn their way through it. And the last thing I'll say is there were a lot of people at military transition centers and career centers that think they know SkillBridge, but they're not really sure how it works on the company end. So by getting more tight with these different organizations within the military that are advising the soldiers about SkillBridge, we've got a lot better runway with third parties.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. That was awesome, and 100% agree with you on that. Hey, David, can you talk a little bit about how you're supporting your downstream? That's probably not the right word. Your partner network with third party.
Yeah, you bet. Mike, a lot of good comments there about training a number of different folks. So our MOU, one, we have a Deere & Company MOU that allows us also to supply SkillBridge candidates to our independently owned dealership network that's throughout the United States. And this is, as we discussed before, business driven, right? What's our highest needs and where are those greatest opportunities? What's extremely attractive about our dealer locations, they're scattered across the United States. And most likely those service members, as they're transitioning out of the military, have a John Deere dealership at home that they can go back to. we have found location is a key element in their decision, in their transition process, and getting the word out that, hey, you have the opportunity to do that regardless of those skills. And in that SkillBridge internship at the dealership, we'll be able to train them, give them the skills, and really help them set up for that life as they come out after this. Now, we've learned a lot on this. And just like Mike said, training those dealerships, the mentorship, the follow through, all accountability, making all that work. Cassie, who's on the call as part of our outreach team, is getting very efficient in getting the paperwork, the connection made, understanding the location, type of work, their timing, and all that approving documentation available for that service member. That makes it easy for them when they go into their command, that they say, I have a SkillBridge opportunity. Can I gain your approval? Having all that documentation, I think, is a huge advantage to that service member. And we're seeing great success with that.
Thank you, David. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're running a little bit behind, but this has been amazing. We will keep it to 1 hour, and we will do this again if we need to. I've just opened the breakout rooms. For those of you that have questions, or maybe federal agencies that have questions on federal agencies, questions on compliance, stay here. Chris Thorne is going to address this in the main room. If you have questions for the 50 Strong team, stay here with us as well. I've just opened the breakout rooms. The speakers here are each going to host their own breakout room. So I'm going to ask them to move into their breakout room. If you have questions specifically for any of these folks, you're welcome to move yourself into any of their breakout rooms now. We'll do this for about 15 minutes, and then we'll wrap up just for a couple of quick minutes together. Again, stay here in the room. If you have questions for Chris on compliance, HR, all the things about, can I do this? What's the risk? Or if you have questions for the 50 Strong team. All right, Chris, let's give it a minute to make sure folks are getting into breakout rooms.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see people jumping into great rooms. What a great group of people we have here this morning.
Thank you all for being here. I also want to say, if you have questions on the things like how Cushman & Wakefield is moving all those people through their system, Jamie McCall is freaking a rock star at the process of all of this. She is in the Cushman & Wakefield room, so please feel free to head over there as well. The numbers next to the room numbers indicate who all's in there. For those of you that are here that want to ask questions, Mike Piper at Lowe's is frankly, y'all leading the charge when it comes to workforce development. So I encourage you, don't waste your time for me and Chris today. Go talk to the folks that are leading these programs.
He's also been leading the way in helping the military community understand his brand for his talent opportunities.
Okay, that's right.
Chris, Candy, did you see the question about where to what
third party? So yeah. Heidi, Tech Systems is a third party partner. Mike Powers is hosting a breakout room today. You're welcome to go talk to him. If you have overall questions, you're welcome to stay here with us as well. We can give you a few other recommendations for which third parties you may also want to start with. But while Mike is here, I'd recommend that you go talk to him. Okay, it looks like folks have moved into breakout rooms. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Candy.
Can you, Chris, you've been doing a lot of tracking around, like, what are the key questions that employers are having related to compliance? Can you just share a little bit about some of the latest things that you're coming across?
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. Of course, my heart warms when everyone leans in. One of the first things I always want to encourage is remember that SkillBridge is still a requirement for compliance. It is a pre-employment pathway. I'm going to say that again. It is a pre-employment pathway. And that means that everything that you build your program around has to understand and respect that one. And so, you know, staying very clean on some things keeps you out of trouble in the long term. But, you know, we're seeing some great questions come up. Actually, one of the employers who's here with us today I had a great question because if you are a large employer of 50 or more, depending on 150 more federal contractor, 100 or more non-federal, then you know that EEO-1 reporting time is coming up probably in July when we get the announcement. And so, you know, these questions that come around, do I have to include SkillBridge candidates in my workplace in my EEO-1 reporting numbers? Do they count toward headcount volume? These are the types of things that we really want to make sure we've got baked in. And by the way, I will share with you, as long as you've set up your SkillBridge process appropriately, they do not go into your EEO-1 reporting data out there. But there are ways that they can end up triggering that. One of the big questions that we often see is, how do I bring a SkillBridge intern or a SkillBridge candidate into my organization, have them in my HRISs, give them IT and facility access, all those things? How do I do that without gaining them as an employee in my overall count systems out there? And that's going to vary depending on what you're using as an HRIS out there. Different ones will allow you to do different things, but you need to be thinking from the beginning of what are the outcomes. If you put somebody in your system as a 1 cent, then they will trigger an employee count, and that can happen. So that's an important, you know, I think the other thing that we're seeing a lot of, and Candy, I know you know this, and I think we've got some folks here today, is a lot more interest from the federal side. And that being that last year, actually a little early last year, the Department of Defense issued a blanket authority that all federal departments are blanket authorized DoD SkillBridge providers without having to do an individual MOU. Now, many of them are still doing individual MOUs because they feel that they want to do that, and that's fine, but they are blanket authorized. So we're seeing a lot of interest now from federal agencies and departments who want to be direct SkillBridge hosting providers. So we're happy to see that one. But for all of you who work with the federal government, this is where it becomes another question. If you are a federal contractor and you are hosting SkillBridge providers, you need to have very clear delineations on the roles and responsibilities of the individuals you're bringing in. These are still, Candy highlighted it at the beginning, and I think we still have Ivan here, so I'd love to hear him ring in on this, but she highlighted it on one of the key slides. These are federal employees. They are employees of the United States Department of Defense who are conducting skills-based training inside your organization. They are fulfilling official military duties, but they are still employees of the Department of Defense. Now, what that means, if you are a federal contractor, you cannot have them fulfilling billable duties to the Department of Defense. They cannot be in a role where you are either burning against headcount, time requirements, productivity requirements. They cannot be a billable asset against your federal contract because the federal government's already paying them, and they don't like paying for things twice. So it's really important, especially for our Fed contracting folks, to think about that. Ivan, I'd love to, actually, we haven't gotten to hear a lot from you. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, we are definitely hoping that federal hiring agencies, you know, and there is no bigger one than the VA. And I can't give you the head count they hire, Chris, but as you know, they've got the WarTAC program. They've got a ton of programs. And I think the reason the VA is probably number one is, you know, they're so darn big. So when you really look at their requirements, it's pretty hefty. So I think you're going to continue to see the VA really dominate the federal employer SkillBridge space. And I think if we have any federal employers on here, I've got the WarTAC points of contact that I can get you in touch with, but they're clearly the best. I would say the next organization, FEMA hired some full-time folks to also help with SkillBridge. So it hasn't really caught on, Chris, to all federal agencies, but I think it's like anything else. When you start to invest full-time HR professionals to really get after this, to kind of bridge to your hiring managers, you start to figure out the federal government's really no different than Amazon and all the companies, Candy, that you got on here. You know, they have to be intentional about what they're trying to do. And I will tell you this, for any federal employers that are on here, there is a propensity for folks who serve to want to then continue to serve in the federal government. So you've got some wind at your back if you decide to enter this space. I'm not telling you you're a preferred employer, but Chris and I are geeks and we go to the BLS data. And Chris, I think you'll see, I mean, federal, and I'm a perfect example, but you know, I still remember going to my wife and saying, I'm going to continue to serve. And it's that service ethos, I think, that really is going to help the federal government, if they want to kind of capture the flag on some of this talent. And again, we've spent so much money on this talent pool. It's such an easy flip just to put them into the federal government, but they won't flock to you. Just, I guess what I'm saying is SkillBridge can kind of be that magnet that increases your market share. So Chris, I've probably said enough, but
no, that's I love it. I know Candy's smiling when you say, look, veteran talent, straight out of your shop, DOL this morning, fresh new numbers, 2.2% veteran unemployment for the month of April, 2.2. Modern era veterans, so Gulf War II era veterans, those who have served on active duty separated since 9/11. So that is the preponderance of our working age veterans right now, about 9 million or so out there. Amongst them, 1.9% unemployment, less than 100,000 total unemployed amongst that population. Ivan, to your point, this is not a benevolence hiring program. This is not a field. This is a targeted program at high talent skill that is going to make any organization stronger, and SkillBridge gives you an opportunity to get left of that marker point, and like you mentioned, Ivan, put that magnet into your organization. But you have to do it right. And you said something else that I love, Ivan, and that is, Candy had mentioned early on, look, there's going to be growing pains. We've gone from the authorization of SkillBridge in 2011 to the implementation of it in 2014 to the explosive growth of it through, 2019, 2020 to where we are now. We know there's going to be growing pains. And folks, I will share with you, I could look at a number of organizations that are out there in the SkillBridge space today that should not be functioning, doing the things that they're doing the way that they're doing them out there. And that's okay, because I'm very comfortable that Ivan's folks or state regulatory agencies will solve that problem as we get further along. But I really feel that as we, as a group, especially this industry sharing, as we professionalize SkillBridge as part of our talent management processes, then that's going to make all of us better. It's going to make the outcomes better. It's going to make the process better. But
Chris, I gotta jump in over here.
Yes.
Here's the thing. SkillBridge, in some ways, not so much today, but about a year ago, felt a little bit like the freaking Wild Wild West, right?
Oh yeah.
And part of why I tried to mention before about industry partners are one stakeholder, and the more industry partners are focused on workforce outcomes and best practices, we are doing our job.
Yes.
Right. And all the other Wild Wild West stuff will work itself out when we as industry partners are doing what we can and building trust among the stakeholder community. And that is really where I get excited about shining a light on those that are focused on the outcomes and best practices, because I think that is what we need, right? Like, that is what the industry needs. Best practices, almost a little bit of self-policing, if you will.
Actually, self-policing is exactly there, because honestly, Ivan probably agree, our life gets tougher when DOL or DOD has to start writing extra rules, regulations, and policies for us to follow along.
Right.
We're better when we do it ourselves. Now, what I love is when there is supportive work that comes, Ivan, some of the opinion letters that have come out of DOL have been really helpful for employers in support of SkillBridge. I'll give a great example for everyone on here. Actually, a little over a year ago now, DOL issued an opinion letter for those who were concerned about OFCCP compliance. I'm an employer. I am not a federal contractor. I am not currently, I do not fall under OFCCP compliance. Will hosting a SkillBridge in turn trip an OFCCP compliance requirement in my organization? That's a very legitimate question, because we all know that makes for a very different world as an employer when you go down that pathway. DOL really did us with a favor. They dove in and they issued an opinion letter that says that simply hosting a SkillBridge intern at an organization in and of itself does not create an OFCCP compliance element. Folks, that's a huge thing to be able to lift that weight. And Ivan, I love that your team was able to put that one out, and I'm so appreciative for that one.
Well, Candy, I think by you kind of bringing these best practices into light, I really feel like the commanders even feel a little bit more comfortable with SkillBridge than they did at the beginning. So what I would say is,
By the way, that's an amazing thing.
yeah, and
We are building trust.
I don't want you to think that. I think word of mouth is helping commanders realize it's in our interest to do this. But if the ecosystem was terribly dysfunctional, then commanders wouldn't support it. So what I would say is, you know, you creating these kind of cool stories, both with employers and your participants, I really think that's, and I will tell you this, folks, we are getting ready to testify. If you want to hear it, it's 17 May. My boss, Margarita Devlin, will testify to Congress. And let me tell you what the #1 theme is going to be. Number one, well, let me rephrase that. She's testifying. I wrote the testimony. So the #1 theme that I want to highlight is that our Employment Navigator and Partnership Pilot, which you can read up on later, and DoD SkillBridge is rapidly transforming the employment space. So the reason Chris and Candy were telling Congress that is we don't need a bunch of new legislation now. Let's let this ecosystem kind of sort itself out for the next year or two. And then if we need legislation, great. I'll be the first to say let's ask for it. But I can tell you it wasn't just a few years ago that I really didn't know how to answer the question to an employer when they said, how do I get after the talent that's separating from the military? And now we've got a program designed just to do that. Yeah. So what I would say is when Congress designed SkillBridge, I don't think Congress realizes, is this going to help the employer or is this going to help the service member? I think somebody just decided we're going to do this. And now I think both parties would say we're winners. I think the employers would say we're winning, and I think the service member would say we're winning. So folks, I'm telling you, the government doesn't hit it out of the park very often. This is a winner.
Yeah. You know, Ivan, to that point, and I'm with you. I don't sit here and sing praises of Congress very often, but they got it right when they created SkillBridge. But to that point, and I know Candy's going to kick us, tell us stop talking. To that point, I think one of the things about SkillBridge that makes it work is the fact that it is a 2-sentence law. When we look at 1143 Echo, the more we write, the harder it is to deal with something. And so to that point, as industry, we are best when we share these practices and self-regulate so that we don't have to go down asking for more congressional writing, more laws, more of that. I think we're better without it. So anyways, Candy.
Listen, this is amazing. We got to wrap, but I want to thank everybody for being here. 50 Strong is working really hard to enable SkillBridge activation for all DoD authorized employers. So this is available for replay. We have PDFs of these slides on our website. We also do 24-hour opportunity listings at the city, state level, specific opportunities. It's free for any SkillBridge partner to use this. I just dropped the link in there. Please feel free to use this if this is helpful in your outreach. Again, information on those free SHRM and HRCI PDCs, please reach out to Chris. Chris, you can drop that again in the chat. I'd appreciate it. Next week, we'll do another one of these focused on student veterans and then Guard Reserve 2 weeks after that. There's a lot of questions about student veterans, but I'm here to tell y'all, this is, if SkillBridge was 2022 and 2023, Student Veterans is coming, and I'm super excited that we're going to be talking about this next week. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate you, and I hope this has been a helpful power hour for you. To all the speakers that have joined us to lend your insight, thank you all so much. With that, we will wrap up, and I will let you get on with your day. Happy Friday and happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody.